So here it is, the Xbox 360. It's about time that I did a video on the other side of gaming. Well, in terms of console wars, but hey, better late than never. The Xbox 360 was an extremely popular console in the last decade, with it being the first system of the 7th generation of consoles, being released in 2005, just a year before the PS3's release, which was a strategic move by Microsoft to beat Sony in the holiday season. The Xbox 360 was also famous for its popular functionality with Xbox Live and multimedia capabilities. On the flip side of that, it was also famous for one of the most popular hardware failures known as the Red Ring of Death, which almost buried Microsoft in repair units and bankruptcy. The Green Team was a force to be reckoned with in the early 2000s, with it coming off of its somewhat failure original Xbox, and soon redeeming themselves with their new system to bring the market into the new era of gaming. This is the Xbox 360 and why you should pick one up in 2021. If you guys haven't already, make sure to hit the subscribe button down below and also hit the bell icon so you won't miss any future videos. I'm going to be posting more of these Is It Worth It every week, and by you hitting the subscribe button, you'll be showing your support. But without further ado, let's get right into it. First off, a history lesson. The Xbox 360 was born out of Microsoft's defeat in the early 2000s from Sony with their PlayStation 2, video on that in the right hand corner. You see, they were trying to get into the gaming industry after they saw the success of Sony's first console, the PlayStation 1. In that, Microsoft designed the original Xbox in the late 90s and then released it in 2001, with it having way more advanced specs than the PlayStation 2. You would expect the console with the better specs to outsell the PlayStation. Yeah, well, about that. The Xbox kinda got crushed by the PlayStation 2 in sales and popularity, although it wasn't a total loss for the company, as they beat the Nintendo's GameCube in sales. The console had great games, but it wasn't enough for it to sell really well. And besides, the Xbox design wasn't anything to write home about. To quote Robbie Buck, everyone loved Halo and Xbox Live, but no one liked the console. In 2003, Microsoft began developing the Xbox 360 with promising specs for the time, as well as a new team to lead the system into the modern era of video games. The system was drastically different from the 2001 Xbox, as it was designed to be slim and unobtrusive in the living room. This design change, though, is what would haunt the system for the rest of its lifespan. The Xbox 360 took on some specs from the PlayStation 3, specifically the processor, but it was redesigned, as well as adding new functionality such as HD graphics to take advantage of the HD television boom, as well as a hard drive to store games. One thing the Xbox did get right was Xbox Live, which was the main selling point. It would make a return in the new system, but would have to be drastically redesigned. The Xbox 360 was released on November 22nd, 2005, just a year before the PlayStation 3's release date, which was a strategic choice by Microsoft, as they could have a head start against Sony in the holiday season, which is the peak moment for any console to sell well. The critical reception of the Xbox 360 was very good, as in 2009, IGN named the Xbox 360 the 6th greatest video game console of all time, out of a field of 25. Although not the best-selling console of the 7th generation, the 360 was deemed by TechRadar to be the most influential by emphasizing digital media distribution and online gaming through Xbox Live, and popularizing game achievement awards. The 360, in sticking to the trend of implementing new features, made their way to use HD DVDs and solidify it as this new standard of media consumption in the 2000s. With a HD DVD add-on, you could watch movies in HD quality. Sony, on the other hand, experimented with the Blu-ray disc, which was a big selling point for the PlayStation 3 in 2006 onward. And we all know how this format war went. It's like Betamax and VHS back in the 80s. The one main reason Blu-ray won the format war was because Blu-ray discs could store much more data on a single disc than HD DVDs, a whopping 30 to 50 gigabytes on a single disc compared to the measly 8 to 10 gigabytes on a HD DVD disc. This made the Blu-ray disc much more appealing to game developers, as well as to the PS3, as they could ship games on a single disc instead of needing to ship games on multiple discs, which is what the Xbox 360 had to do. The Xbox 360 soon became a success in the 7th generation of consoles, selling 84 million units, although still not outselling the PlayStation 3. It did well in solidifying the Xbox brand as a force to be reckoned with in the gaming industry. My opinion on the Xbox 360 versus PS3 debate is this: the 360 did really well in 2005, all throughout 2009. With it being a much cheaper console than the PlayStation 3. Then the PlayStation 3 costs came down, and then the PlayStation 3 started to really sell well, between 2009 and all the way to the 8th generation of consoles in 2013. So the war between these consoles are pretty skewed. with both having their own issues. The 360 was known for the red ring of death, which was a significant hardware failure caused by the desoldering of parts on the motherboard from extreme heat. The design of the 360 was so focused on being slim and powerful, they didn't even bother with space for proper cooling, which allowed the system to overheat fast and melt soldering on the board. You remember that large power supply that this 360 shipped with? Yeah, well, the system was so packed full of hardware, it had no room for a power supply. Other reasons for the red ring of death was from the shady business practices of shipping manufacturing to foreign countries to create the system, which was cheaper but led almost 60% of the 360s to have defects in them, meaning that out of the 27 million units of original Xbox 360s sold between 2005 and 2008, 16 million of them were defective in some way. It was only a matter of time before these defects were made known to users. Microsoft, after releasing the flaws with their system, decided to extend the warranty to 3 years and have free repairs for all systems. It was a crushing blow to the company, but Microsoft had the money banks to really take the hit. Microsoft was so focused on defeating Sony that they forgot to look towards their own system and try and fix it. The Xbox 360, however, did recover and sold really well. They also released 2 other versions of the 360, with a slim version, which I have here, and the 360e, which resembles an Xbox One. Both these models did not have the red ring of death, making them a better model to buy. I always recommend people to buy the slim model, as it's the ultimate and most reliable way to experience the Xbox 360 functionality. Moving on to the specs of the system, the 360 came with a 3.2 GHz PowerPC Xenon CPU, which is basically the processor inside the PlayStation 3, but had a drastic redesign. It also came with an AMD Xenos GPU clocked to 500 MHz, came with 512 MB of DDR3 RAM, Dolby Surround, 4 GB of onboard storage, but it could be increased with hard drives, and also resolutions up to 1080p with HDMI. The original Xbox 360 had some really good specs, making it be able to play games in HD resolutions, although it was not known to many users, but it could also do HD along the component cables, because the console did not have HDMI until 2007 with the Elite model. It's not great HD as it is analog, and can be blurry on modern TVs, but still, it's HD. This is why I consider the PlayStation 3 to be the first console to do proper HD resolution, as it shipped with HDMI before the Elite or slim versions of the 360s, allowing you to do 1080p without analog to digital converters, and it was also in full digital, making the image sharper and clearer on modern televisions. Also, just saying, correct me if I'm wrong in the comments, but this has been such a small subject of debate in my videos. Okay, I know this video is why you need an Xbox 360 in 2021, but people need to know the history of the 360 and where it came from, allowing you to have context on the design changes and functionality choices they made. The slim model is basically the best model of 360s you can buy. It's quite a small console compared to the first 360, and adds an internal hard drives as well as a quieter fan and unobtrusive design, because before, the fan in the original 360 was incredibly loud. I much prefer the slim black design over the 360 OG. It's also very reliable, meaning you won't get the red ring of death as you've heard before. On the front, you have the power button as well as the eject and front USB ports. On the back, you have the HDMI and loads of USB ports, as well as optical audio, a power port, and a hard drive tray. Note that you could upgrade the hard drive to something much larger. Okay, this next section is going to be up to debate, but this is basically my personal preference. The Xbox 360 came with the best controller of any console in the market. I'm serious. Microsoft nailed the Xbox 360 controller's design and feel. It is super comfortable to hold for long gaming sessions, as well as being built well with reinforced plastic all around. The controller layout is a very nice touch as well, and the triggers are super nice to hold down. Compare this to the PS3 controller and you can see how plasticky it feels, as well as having very mushy triggers. This controller is a monumental upgrade from the Duke controller from the original Xbox. It was such a big leap for the time that it became the default layout for PC controllers to follow up till today. Many people still use it for playing on PC as it has full support with Windows 10. Although the downside of the 360 controller is the rechargeable batteries, which have sparked decades of memes surrounding its flawed design. The UI of the Xbox is also a nice touch, with everything being super easy to navigate to in a Windows 8 fashion, which not a lot of people are a fan of, but it worked well here in the console package. Icons are easy to see, and everything you need for multimedia applications is easy to navigate to. Netflix, Hulu, and YouTube are all available as well as Xbox Live services being a key highlight here. Microsoft also tried this Wii-like idea with the introduction of 3D avatars you could customize. I mean, it's cute, but you could definitely tell they tried to copy Nintendo and their Miis. Xbox Live was a massive feature in the 360, allowing you to earn trophies for playing games as well as connecting to multiplayer, allowing you to play with friends and find new people to hang out with. Honestly, I find this version of online much more intuitive than the PlayStation 3's, as communication between friends and new players is much more easier and much more functional, allowing for more features such as voice recording and better versions of texting. Sure, the PlayStation 3 had the ability to communicate to others online, but the 360 had a much more streamlined and functional design. Xbox Live is still supported to this day on the 360, as well as it being integrated in every Windows PC and Xbox One to the Series X. Xbox Live still remains one of my favorite aspects of the 360, and a key factor on whether you should buy one. If you are considering buying one for online, go for it. You won't be disappointed. Speaking of online, the majority of games are still supported, with servers still running. Key examples are Call of Duty and GTA, as well as Halo, which I don't see support ending for just yet. Speaking of games, the 360 did not disappoint, with some amazing titles being made on it. Key examples are obviously Halo, but for me it would have to be the Assassin's Creed trilogy, Driver San Francisco, Forza, Battlefield, Call of Duty, Red Dead Redemption, GTA, Skyrim, and so many more. Their integration with Xbox Live was also a very nice touch. And let's not forget the best exclusive on the platform, Gears of War. The level of exclusives were definitely alright on the 360, since the PlayStation obviously had the better exclusives. But what made them great, as I said before, was the integration of Xbox Live. The game I sunk the most hours into was Driver San Francisco. This game was such a breath of fresh air for the series, as it featured a new storyline with likable characters and its most popular feature, Open World San Francisco. Honestly, my most fond memories of the game were just me ignoring missions and cruising around in my Pagani with the radio blasting. It's like GTA, but without the killing. Next we have Battlefield 3. Now this game was my introduction to the Battlefield franchise, and was my calling card to move away from Call of Duty. The games was such a blast for me, and I never really cared about much of the story because the multiplayer was where it was at. 64-player games were complete chaos, and it made me fall in love with this monolithic battles that the Battlefield franchise has been known for. The game had huge maps and made you feel like an actual soldier going into war. There would be all these little mini battles scattered along the maps, and then everyone would group up and then go straight into enemy lines in a full, massive 64-player battle. On a side note, of course the exclusives like Gears of War were great. They were seriously amazing games that immersed whoever played them. The Xbox 360 sold much better than its predecessor. Although not being the best-selling console of the 7th generation, it is regarded as a success since it strengthened Microsoft as a major force in the console market, at the expense of well-established rivals. The PlayStation 3 struggled for a time due to it being way too expensive, and initially lacking quality games, making it far less dominant than its predecessor, the PlayStation 2. And it took until late in the PlayStation 3's lifespan for its sales and games to reach a scale to the Xbox 360. There are so many reasons to buy a 360 in 2021. One reason could definitely be for Xbox Live or the exclusives, or even the multimedia functionality, as you could stream from Netflix and YouTube. The Xbox 360 helped usher in the online gaming boom found on the PC, and did so through the greatest online service known as Xbox Live, and implemented it in some of the greatest games of our generation. Okay, this isn't on the script, but this is really funny. I don't think you guys realize this, but I got so much hate from my last video about me being an Xbox fanboy in my PlayStation 3 video, because apparently I bashed the PlayStation 3 too much. Like, I don't understand how. I've gotten so many comments saying that I'm an PlayStation fanboy, and then I'm now getting comments of people calling me an Xbox fanboy. Like, I really don't understand how this works. But whatever, it's the internet, I don't really care. Like, look at this guy's comment. Anyway, I'm just gonna go through all these comments. I'm gonna go through the angry ones, and then I'm gonna go through the all the ones that are very encouraging and actually appreciate the videos. So yeah. Speaking of which, appreciate all the support I've been getting on these last couple of videos. Like, we are blowing up in subscribers, blowing up in views, and I just cannot thank you guys enough. And I love that you guys are supporting me and that you guys like the content. Like, I've gotten so many comments of people saying that the videos are really good and they're really well made, and you know, I really appreciate that. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and I hope to see you all in the next one.